are now joined by Raju Daswani, CEO at Fastmarkets. Raju leads Fastmarkets, a global cross-commodity price reporting agency, which includes the business formerly known as Metal Bulletin. Headquartered in London, Fastmarkets has over 650 employees across 14 global offices, including key locations like Singapore, Shanghai, Chicago, and Sao Paulo. Since 2014, the company has rapidly expanded through organic growth and strategic acquisitions. Fastmarkets publishes over 5,500 commodity price benchmarks for metals, mining, agriculture, and forest markets, many of which serve as financial benchmarks on major exchanges such as SGX, CME, and LME. A lot of acronyms there. Their prices are backed by respected market commentary forecasts, research, and a portfolio of over 25 leading industry conferences each year. Raju, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kisa.
So next year will make your 30-year anniversary with the firm, with Fastmarkets. I'd love to know a bit about why you're still here. And that's a positive question because many times, 30 years is just something that people can't even fathom in today's market. So what fascinates you? What brings you back? What wakes you up and puts a smile on your face and has you singing with the birds and say, hey, this is another day that Fastmarkets and I are married and we're going to go out and do it? Tell me about that.
So 30 years is a long time.
Yes.
So most people think I just can't get a job anywhere else. That's not true. So firstly, it's a lifelong love affair. I think from the first day I walked into the company, I loved what we did. The product was a phenomenal product. And the position of the brand within the industry and the market and the clients that we served was second to none. So I think that's always been the first primary focus, that if you work for a business, you have to truly believe in what you are doing for your customers. And for me, that was a big draw. And over the 30 years, what's been most important for me is the ability to drive change. And again, being there for 30 years, I've never been afraid to make change. And we've seen a number of transformations in this business. And becoming the CEO, and I've been the CEO for 18 years of that 30, it's been a significant ride and learning experience for me. And I think the most important thing as to why I remain there for 30 years is that I keep learning. And I think the day I find I wake up in the morning and feel I didn't learn anything this week or I've not learned anything this month, that's the time I need to think that's probably the end of my journey with Fastmarkets. But so far, much to the despair of many of my leadership team, I haven't got there yet.
And we're grateful for that. Raju, I'm curious about your approach to leadership. You mentioned being CEO for 18 years. Before that, you had other roles. What leadership style really works for you? And how did you come to identify that was your style? This is the way that Raju rolls. This is my style. How did you come to realize that?
Firstly, your style will adapt and change with times. We live in a very different world in 2024 than we did in 1995 when I joined the company. So I think you have to be very aware of the people you work with, generational shift, and your style adapts accordingly. So today, of course, diversity and inclusion, for example, is very much a key element of what drives me and drives the business. But what's most important is not doing it because you feel you have to do it. It's about educating yourself as to why we do it. And for me, that's a big part of it. But most importantly, it all goes down to being able to change. So style for me is about being open to change, being open to shift the business and move it along, being open to think about how we adapt our culture and how we adapt the identity of the business. And with change comes a lot of responsibility, because effective change is down to how you communicate and how you lead. So for me, that's a big part of my style of management. It's very change focused and change driven, and that has been a feature of my style since I've run this business for the last 18 years.
So change is an important theme, and a lot of it really comes from knowing when you need to pivot, when you need to adapt, doing that research. What gives you the confidence to make the moves that you need to make the changes that you need to make? How do you not second guess yourself? How do you refrain from doing those things that are so common?
Well, I mean, one aspect of the value set that we have at Fastmarkets is to be very metrics driven, right? And with that means you try and use as much data as you can to underpin the change that you're making. However, as a CEO, it's not always possible to have all the information all the time. And sometimes you have to make calculated risks or make decisions without all the information that you would like to have. And that's kind of partly what we are paid to do in this role. And with that risk, you want to make as much an educated risk as possible, but you want to also be able to ensure that you understand the potential risk, being able to be aware of it, and being able to pivot again if you need to pivot again. And for me, that's really important.
Yeah, could you give me an example of when you lead with metrics-driven decisions? Give us an example of what that looks like. So is it backing into some numbers? Is it setting the right KPIs and milestones? Give us an example.
I mean, it's kind of understanding what your business does and what your customers want and need. I mean, a good example is our transformation. We were a magazine business. And then, of course, as I said, I've been there for 30 years. So I've seen a number of transformational shifts. Probably the biggest one is the internet, right? And so pre-internet, we were a magazine business. The business had really not changed in any way, shape, or form for 100 years. And we're a business that was founded back in 1913. So from 1913 all the way through to the end of that millennium, it was the same business. It was a print magazine business. Things changed. We had color magazines and we could send things by airmail. But otherwise, the business was exactly the same. The internet changed all of that. And part of that was being able to understand how we respond to that change. Part of that was understanding what our customers actually needed from the product and from the business. And because the business was heavily focused on advertising back in the days as a magazine, and because we knew that circulation would drop significantly on the back of the internet, because a lot of the information people came to us for, you could now get freely on the internet. So we had to focus on what did the customer actually use the product for? And we realized it was about the insights that we provided, the data that we had in our products. And with that information, we were able to make that change and adapt our product into being a subscription-based product, move it away from advertising, ultimately drop the print, and turn the business fundamentally into a data business.
I love it. That's juicy, a juicy story. And would you say that most of the information came from conversations with customers? Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, data can be subjective, it can be qualitative, quantitative, but it is insights that effectively drive your decision. So yes, over time, that's what became very apparent. And all our shifts from a business perspective is based on what the customer needs and what the customer wants. Right, and that's what drives the decisions that we make day to day, month to month. And today, we've got a big team here in Vegas. Some of them are here listening to me now, and they're here because they're engaging with our client base on a continuous basis. Because ultimately, we don't make the decisions; the customers make the decisions, the markets make the decisions. And I think that's the most important aspect that any leader has to be focused on. Is that yes, as I've said, market change has meant we're more people-oriented in terms of internal, but you never get away from the fact that we serve our customer.
One of the apparent themes that I hear from you, Raju, is change, change, change. And when we talk about leadership and what success looks like, I'm wondering if what success looks like now for you is much different than what success looked like maybe halfway into your journey with Fastmarkets, say 15 years ago. Has that shifted, or do you still have the same vision and view of success, and what is it?
I mean, that's a difficult question to answer, but firstly, yes, because today we're seeing more change than ever. So success is always going to be about adapting. For example, today we're seeing this huge shift technologically. The advent and emergence of AI, how that impacts the roles that we play in our companies, and how that impacts how we serve our customers. So from that aspect, yes, I think success is always going to be determined by how rapidly you change and adapt to what you're seeing in the market.
And so if we think about, the type of talent that you want to bring into Fastmarkets and proof points, the folks who've done well there, what are you looking for? Who are you looking for? Give me some characteristics and character traits.
I think firstly, resilience is really important. Adaptability. I mean, the buzzword so far has been change. They're going to be change-oriented, open to change. We've talked about diversity, but let's talk about why it's important. It's because it gives you a broad base range of views and thoughts. And I think diversity comes in all shapes and forms, and not just whether it's gender or whether it's race or disabilities, but it's by age as well. And I think the new generation has taught me a lot too. So I think that opens your mind to a different way of thinking. And I think that new generation also drives this diversity agenda, because actually you don't have to educate. They come educated. It's actually us and our generation that needs the education. So I think in some ways that's where it brings and changes the whole culture of the organization too.
Let's talk about challenges that you faced in your career. I'm specifically looking at stories or a story where you felt that at the time you were in a pretty low place, that maybe failure pops into mind. But looking back at it now, you're pleased. You can't imagine not having that experience because it's really colored who you are now and the way that you lead. Could you talk us through the experience itself and how you learned from that?
Yeah, look, I think what you just said, first of all, in our pre-discussions, you mentioned about also sort of quotes that I could relate to. So one good quote that I would draw on is a quote by Winston Churchill. And that quote is, "Success is not final and failure is not fatal," right? It's the continuing that counts. And for me, that's the most important thing. And success is not final means don't be complacent about your success, because markets will move much faster than you think. And suddenly what you believe is a success suddenly becomes outdated. And when you fail, take it as a learning experience. And take that experience and move on with it and learn from it and change the next time you handle or have to find a solution for a problem. And for me, that's the most important thing. So I think the combination of taking complacency out of the equation and accepting that failure is a learning opportunity is the most important aspects.
I'm wondering too, I'm sure there are people who are hearing this thinking, wow, I would love to apply this to my company, whether it's the learning aspect, whether it's taking complacency out of the equation. Those are key things that many people think about, but they've never actually integrated. I'm wondering if there's one thing that you could change about the corporate world as it exists now, what would that be? So whether we're talking about leadership qualities, whether we're talking about governance, what would that look like?
So for me, I think it's a great question. And I've thought a lot about this because we as a company have moved from being a public company, a listed company on the London Stock Exchange, into being a private organization. And so I consider corporate coming in many different forms and shapes. So let's talk about the shift from being a public into a private company. First of all, and answering your question more directly, it's about how you look at your business and what time span you look at. And I think being under public ownership, it was a very short-term focused business. You almost work quarter to quarter. It leaves very little room for long-term thinking, long-term planning, and long-term decision-making. Whereas as a private company, you can take a step back. You don't have the pressure of reporting to the city on a regular basis. And you can actually make decisions for the longer term. And we can take a 5-year, 10-year horizon. And for a business like ours, where our investment takes 10 years to pay back sometimes, you can't take a short-term view. Because when we look at a new market, we're here at the Lithium conference, right? So we are the benchmark for lithium prices in many of the markets that we serve. We started publishing lithium in 1963, lithium prices. We started publishing the current set of prices, the way we look at prices today, in 2017. So it's a 7-year period to which to develop that price into what it is today that allows us to succeed and be where we are with the market. So I think from that perspective, if we took a 2-year view or a 1-year view, we wouldn't be sitting here at this conference today being at the center of a very important market that's serving so many good causes in terms of energy transition, sustainability. For me, that's really important, that the ability to take long-term views and long-term planning for your business.
Love that. So long term, and that's a conversation we're hearing a lot, particularly in governance. Short term profits and motives versus long term sustainability, where profits may come, but it may take a little bit longer.
And I think we're seeing that here because people are sitting here at this conference, and you've got two people saying, "Oh wow, the prices are down at low levels. They're down from $80 to $15. They're canceling projects." It's the wrong thing. I mean, if you think about this market has long term strength. This is the way the market is going, right? We're all going to be driving electric vehicles. If it's not in 5 years, it's going to be in 10 years, but we are going to drive electric vehicles. The market needs lithium. This is an investment opportunity in time to be investing more in the market, not to be backing off out of it. And that's the perfect example where investors are taking a short-term view, not a long-term view.
So do you feel that from a policy perspective, that the policy would back up what we're saying here, that this is the market to be in, this is where we're going? Do you think policymakers would say, yeah, and we're creating policy and regulations around that? Or,
I mean, firstly, I don't want to get started on politics and policies, but we're in the middle of an election year.
In the US,
are the policies there because of climate change, or are the policies there to win votes? Right? And I think that's the problem. I think policies get politicized, and therefore you lose sight of the true goal. Because really, why are we talking about electric vehicles? We're talking about driving an energy transition to save the planet, right? And climate change. Are policies supporting that? I'm not sure. Because we're still using this whole market as some sort of political football. So for me, that isn't the right way to think about this market.
So if you're looking at drivers, what's really driving the industry, I always say when I think about drivers, I think about regulation, I think about technology, and I think about the end consumer. When they want it, they get it. If regulators want it, they get it. Technology shifts, then it happens. Do you see any other drivers that we should look at in terms of shifting this market and keeping the market moving quicker? Do you think those kind of sum it up?
Yeah, I think that does sum it up. I think the lobby has to continue because that's key. And I think, lover or hater, but Greta Thunberg created a revolution, right? I mean, ultimately, that was a great catalyst alongside what happened in COVID to push this market along. And since then, we've seen things reverse a little bit. I mean, coming out of COVID, inflation, cost of living crisis, all of these things made people pull back on their own targets on EVs, on electrification. But again, the goal is the same, right? The goal is still about climate change and helping solve a bigger issue, a bigger social and global issue that we are facing today.
So I want to get more into you personally and how you move, Raju, in terms of one specific thing that you know about yourself that maybe your team or others don't know that will really give insight into who you are, into how you lead. And if they found that out, they say, aha, I knew it. I knew he did X. I knew he was a meditator. I knew that he was a kung fu artist because of the way that he moves, his energy.
I've got nothing as exciting as that to tell you. So I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. I mean, what do they not know about me? I'm a pretty private person, I think, overall, so I'm not sure they know that much about me personally when I'm not at work. So I think you're right. They see a certain face of me at work. And when I'm at work, I'm pretty intense, I think, and I'm pretty focused on my work. I'm pretty internal and external facing. But I guess when I go home on the weekend, it's about my family. It's about my children. So, I will do all the crazy things with my kids that any father wants to do. And I also love my downtime, right? I mean, for me, getting away from work is really important too. So on a weekend, I will switch off my computers, leave my mobile phone by the side, get in the garden, do some gardening, do some DIY work. And they probably wouldn't expect that. But I think I love doing stuff. I love doing stuff that is just very creative and very, allows me to switch off and almost have a bit of escapism.
And we're going to say that for everyone who's in the back of the virtual room, switching off the laptop, switching off the phone. It's okay to do that every now and again.
We tell our kids that, but you got to practice what you preach. There's no point telling your kids that and having the phone in your hand, right? So,
Exactly. So, Raju, I want to talk about legacy. You mentioned you're coming up on your 30th year of work. You're coming up on your 18th year of being a CEO. What do you want your legacy at Fastmarkets to be?
That's a great question. And firstly, I want to have a legacy. So that's the first most important thing. And I want this business to be a business that I can look back 10 years into retirement and look back and say, that's a great business. And I played a part along with my team in building it, right? And for me, that's really important. So I think seeing the things that we're doing now really take hold, seeing the business playing an important part in the things that matter in the world today. So as I said, energy transition being a big aspect, the stuff we're doing around batteries and electrification, the things we're doing to create more transparency around encouraging the market to produce greener commodities, lower carbon footprints. And I think what we do helps encourage investment in those areas. So for me to see us playing our part in this big global shift that we're seeing is a really important part of my legacy. But of course, I want to see Fastmarkets flourish, thrive, be successful, and I want it to be a great place for people to come and work. For me, that's a big area. And I know we've gone through a lot of change recently, and change is never easy. Change is painful at times. But you have a destination you want to get to, and that destination is very much about making Fastmarkets a great place to work.
Is there anything that you'd like to add as we close it out, as we close out this interview process, or just about the conference in general? Close out the interview?
I mean, first of all, I want to say this has been a great conference. I've been in the business 30 years. In 30 years, I must have attended 150 conferences probably in my career. This is the best one yet, right? And I think that makes me incredibly proud of the team that I have, the hard work and effort that goes into this, because everything from you being here to every aspect of this event needs to be thought through. And it is a big challenge. And for me to see this event as successful as it is today fills me with great pride.
Excellent. Well, I mean, this is definitely a masterclass for those who are interested in leadership in this market and just understanding what it takes to build and grow a company. Raju, everything from understanding what your customer wants, specifically keep learning, always keep learning, and really that your style needs to adapt to the situation. So when adaptation becomes required, think about your style, think about your leadership and how that needs to shift and change, and also resilience and adaptability as a whole.
100%.
100%.
All of that.
That's where the focus needs to be. So Raju, this has been such a delight. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a privilege for me to talk to you. You've been great. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our wonderful folks in the live lounge here. The numbers just keep on creeping up. I love it. Raju, thanks for bringing all the people here.
Thank you. I think it's you, not me, by the way.
And thank you all for joining if you're listening to the recording. And don't forget to subscribe to catch up on all of our other episodes. You can find these on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Podbean, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your content. And if you want to find out more about all the tremendous events that we run in this space, well, it's pretty easy to do. All you have to do is head to the events section at fastmarkets.com. Thank you for joining. I'm Keisha Shreen.